Hello, everyone. Welcome to another one of our Day One and Beyond Did You Know sessions. In this webinar series, we focus on new features and enhancements of Oracle Cloud Infrastructure and discuss how these solutions empower businesses to achieve greater efficiency, security, and scalability. Whether you're a seasoned OCI user or just starting your cloud journey, you're in the right place to explore what's new. My name is Taylor Zhang, and from the Customer Enablement team who puts on these Day One and Beyond sessions. Our presenters today are Jason Cook and Anand Prasad.
Thank you, Taylor. It's been an interesting topic today. And before I start off, I wanted to share a fun fact about what's happening in today's world. I was very surprised when I saw this numbers. I knew that most of the customers are moving towards the multi-cloud, but this number was very staggering. And managing, monitoring the expenses from the financial operations is one of the very key aspect of it in today's cost budgeting as well as managing the workloads for the IT organizations. I wanted to pose a question to Jason and start off with for today's topic is with customers moving to multi-cloud, why is managing and identifying the cloud expenses is a challenge for financial people or FinOps people, Jason?
Thanks, Nan. That's a good question. And the stats on the screen really kind of tell the story of why it's becoming more and challenging, right? Most organizations today are running multiple clouds. You're probably running on one of the major hypervisor platform providers, an AWS, an Azure, an OCI, GCP. You're probably using some of the SaaS providers. You might be having something like a Workday or a Snowflake for your data. And as these groups have been deploying out on multiple different clouds, they've got multiple different costs they've got to keep an eye on, multiple different tools. And after deploying all these resources, doing the integration, sometimes it becomes a challenge just understanding, if I step back, what am I spending across all these cloud platforms? And this has kind of given the rise to people that are specialized in doing financial operations, right? They call them FinOps groups, where they understand the finances of what they're doing in the cloud with a little bit of an operational insight to what's driving those finances. And as the cloud grows and their use of multi-cloud grows, it just kind of adds the complexity of understanding how do I get that data from all those different platforms.
Perfect. Do you want to start off with what are the top challenges the customers are facing?
Yeah, absolutely. Most customers I work with, after they've been on the cloud a couple months, as much as a year, we run into these five common questions from their operations folks, from the financial folks, sourcing, definitely the leadership team. The number one, question I get is, what am I using for my Oracle database licenses? If you're using OCI today, more than likely, you started off with OCI, migrating your Oracle databases there or your Oracle licenses. Maybe you built some new databases there, and this is kind of your first foothold into OCI, right? And questions come in, what am I using for my on-premise BYO license, right? Bring your own license, or my license included, which is more of an on-demand model. But they also, run into questions like, well, how many servers did I have to deploy? And what's the breakout of Linux versus Windows? And how much am I expected to forecast? How much is the ecom group using versus finance versus my infrastructure platform team? And then if I think that I'm starting to consume what I thought I was going to initially go, what's the easy ways that I can start reducing my cost? How can I identify places where I've got some quick wins and I can cost optimize quickly without having to do a bunch of work? And today's topic is to give you some of those easy ways to figure out what are those tools, like the 100 level tools to answer these types of questions. What are the kind of the 200 level tools you can bring out to find out more detailed information about your environment? And then what are some of the things you can do, the easy buttons, to go find out where you can cost optimize a little bit?
Perfect. So we have a lot of interesting questions on the table right now. So with that, I'm pretty sure Oracle is spending a lot of time in investing to provide the capabilities for our users. Do you want to talk about those capabilities?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's start with a very classic scenario, and this is one I've gotten a few times. It is my leadership team ask me for some information. I've got to get it immediately, and I just need a tool that I can run some ad hoc queries, something that I can spend a minimal amount of time in. And oftentimes, where I'm going to start with most customers is the simple and basic cost analysis service. And what this is going to allow you to do is put in some ad hoc, basically queries. Things like periods of time, last month, the whole year, so many quarters. You're going to be able to look at the services you're using, their descriptions, the SKU. And what's hidden in this tool that most people overlook is two little things. There's the ability to hit this Add Tab button. And what that does is break out a second set of reports, another dimension that you can group your data by. And why that's important is, when your leadership says, hey, how much is the e-com team spending? They just got done doing the POC. It's been a few months. What are they spending in their compartment or with the resources that they've tagged e-commerce? This button here allows you to add that additional dimension of data and find out, what did e-com spend the past 3 months? What services are they spending it on? What are all the resources they deployed that are tagged with something like e-commerce, right? The other thing that's oftentimes overlooked in this tool is the ability to get the report that you want, right? The dates, the times, the tags, the compartments. And then with this tab here, download it as a CSV so you can slice and dice it in Excel, right? Oftentimes what we've got to report back to management comes back in an Excel spreadsheet or, as usual, some sort of PowerPoint. And this is the way to kind of run your reports and download them and then tweak them for whatever you need them for. Okay. The second service that came out here recently was one around the FinOps Hub. Now within OCI, there are a bunch of different tools that help you figure out what you're spending, advise you where you can save your money, and figure out, things like your licensing needs. And rather than go to each one of those tools, one of the new tools that came out is a hub, a financial hub, where all the different metrics, all the different information, the optimizations, the recommendations all get pulled into a central dashboard. This is something that got released, I believe, July of this year. And you're going to see more information being pulled into this hub so that you don't have to go to all the individual tools to look for the information that you need. You'll be able to start with the hub and then drill down from there to figure out more specifically the kinds of information you need to pull out to answer the questions that are coming to you.
Perfect. Now, I know you talked about cost analysis. I know you talked about FinOps, but I know customers who have been using this OCI for a while, they already know about this. How about some of the information that is outside of this, what these two tools provides, like license, OS information? Is there anything which you can provide help for our users?
Yeah, that's a fair point, right? These two tools are really much your entry-level, 100-level tools that you use your first couple months and when you need to answer really basic questions. A scenario I came across a few months ago was with an OCI DBA. She'd been working with OCI and Oracle databases for several years, right? And could not find the information in those two tools I just showed. And she was going through the OCI console and clicking on one database at a time, try to answer a question from her leadership team, which was, what licenses are we using across our entire fleet of databases? Now they had 200 databases and she'd spent 6 hours that morning clicking one database screen at a time, trying to figure out, are we using BYO licenses? Are we using the on-demand model that we call license included? And by the time she got to our weekly meeting, she'd had it. And it was, I've done this all morning. There's got to be a better way. Those other tools you showed me aren't working out, right? And one of the tools that often goes unnoticed you won't find in the OCI console is called Show OCI. And this is a GitHub project that one of our really smart people internally creates along with a whole suite of other tools around operations and financial forecasting. And what Show OCI does, it allows you from a CLI model, whether it's on your desktop or something easy like Cloud Shell, which I'm going to demo here in a second, to find out all the information about all the resources in OCI. So for the question before, right, we have a DBA that needs to figure out what kind of license type, BYOL, first license included, what kind of license edition, if I use extreme, high performance, standard, and then how many do I have, like a whole inventory. This was the tool that I showed her how to use and be able to get a full list of everything across your entire tenancy, right? And you can use the same tool to answer other questions like, well, how many servers do I have deployed? And what's the mix and make of CPU and memory? And are they running a particular version of Linux or Windows? And this tool is a really quick tool you can run across your whole tenancy to pull out just about every bit of information about almost every resource that you deployed. And it does it quickly. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, I'm going to switch gears and we're going to jump into the console. I'm going to do a little prayer to the demo gods and hope everything cooperates with me. So I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to switch over and I'm going to start sharing again. So bear with me just 30 seconds here. Okay, give it a second for the screen to come up for everybody. So here I am in the OCI console, right? I'm just on the home screen right here. And what I've brought up here in the bottom is Cloud Shell. And if you're not familiar with that, Cloud Shell is a tool that brings up a temporary Linux image externally off your network or internally. You've got some options, and it has all the tools installed. It's got CLI and Java and Python and all the other tools installed. And show CI is just one extra thing you have to add. There's a very quick command you can run that's on the PowerPoint slide. But as you can see here, I've already got the show OCI Python script installed. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to run a command that finds all the databases in one particular compartment. Okay, and I'll bring the command up here and I'll show you the syntax for it. So here's show OCI. Let me bring this up a little bigger for everybody. We'll get the font size a little larger. Okay, here's that show OCI command. I'm running it with the same credentials that I logged into the OCI console with. So if I can see everything in the tenancy, this says use those same credentials when you're running this command. I'm running it on just the databases. So base database systems, Exadata, ADW, like autonomous database. Any database we have, it's going to go get. I'm going to run it in the region of Ashburn, so just one of our regions. And I'm going to run it actually against the creator of this. His name is Addy. Addy's a mad genius that creates a lot of really good tools. So I'm going to run it against Addy's compartment because he's always got stuff running in there as he's doing testing. And you're going to see a bunch of things fly by the screen here real quick, but then we're going to get a report at the end. I'll scan back through. So this is the tool recursively going through Addy's compartment, looking for databases, and bam, there's all the information. Now, if you remember, the original problem was I got a DB8 looking for a license type. So I'm going to scroll up here a little bit and show you where we find that information at, and then I'll explain to you what else you can do with this report. Okay, there we go. We've got a base database system right here, also called DBAS for some people. It's running a BYOL license, bring your own license. And it's running the edition of Enterprise Edition, along with a lot of other good information. Okay, and you can dump this out into CSV. There's another way to dump this out into autonomous database. If you're, taking all the information at OCI, that's a good way to sort through it. And this is how I've worked with a lot of different financial operations people, database admins, server admins, even networking guys looking for specific IP addresses within their route tables, their firewall rules. This is a really good tool to pull out that financial information and maybe even build like a poor man's CMDB just by using this tool alone. Okay, so let's take another example here. If you had the question of, well, I need to get a list of all my servers, right? With that same command, I could switch it from scanning for the databases to spanning for all the compute services. Run it again. Same thing. It's going to recursively go through Addy's compartment, look for all those different services around compute, like storage and our compute instances. Scroll up here a little bit. Found a bunch of boot volumes. Here's one of the compute instances it found. It's running on a optimized Flex 3. It is running Linux 8.6, along with some other probably juicy information about that instance. So again, this is nice for if you come to the question of I need a list of all my servers because maybe I'm trying to figure out if I've deployed too many or if I'm on track with what I'm deployed. Maybe the security team wants to know, are you running any old instances, any Linux like 4s and 5s and 6s? This is a really fast way to recursively go through everything, whether it's one compartment or everything in your tenancy, to get all the information about your resources.
Wow, that was very impressive, Jason. I really love this because I think I'm a big Excel fan as well. You can dump it into Excel and you can probably definitely make sure you can do some pivot tables and then find out the information even easier for the financial people from BOI or any other information they're looking at. But before you dive into one more thing, I know that you talked about these tools. What else is Oracle is investing to help us, our customers, in terms of reporting, monitoring, which is easy for our customers? Any other tool they have made it easier for customers to pick up from their list and then help us to solve this problem?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, the first two tools we talked about was, a very basic tool for getting ad hoc questions. The second tool kind of leaned into a little more of operational focus if I've got to pull data out. But what can I do with that data to save me money? That's oftentimes the next step is I've deployed a certain amount of resources, and now what I want to do is I want to figure out why I can cost optimize. And the easy button that most people should start with is Cloud Advisor. Now, every cloud platform has one of these. AWS, Azure, GCP, we've all got some sort of advisory tool. And it's important you use these tools on every platform, okay? What our tool does, like most platforms do, is it looks for over-allocated instances. Say when you're deploying out, we'll pick on the e-com team again, you deployed out servers and they were too big, too much CPU, or too much memory. What this tool is going to do is it's going to take all the metrics that those servers emit to the metrics service, right? How much CPU utilization, how much is allocated, is it over allocated? And it's going to run it for a period of time, 30 days, 90 days, and you can configure this. And it's going to give you a list of servers that are running at, say, 5% utilization consistently. And it's going to give you a recommendation of how small you can shrink that server down to. And that's really where the value comes in, is not so much identifying over allocation, but also a recommendation engine for what size this instance should be so it's still performant. Okay, it'll do the same thing for storage. Let's say as part of your migrations, you also decommissioned 50 servers, but you forgot to decommission all the block volumes that went with it. And all that storage is just sitting out there orphaned, but you're still paying for it month to month. The service will find things like that, orphaned resources that are no longer attached to anything. It'll go through and give you recommendations on the compute, the storage, the databases, and the network. It'll also tell you things, like where you've under allocated, where maybe you've got a database that is running hot. It's always at 95% utilization, and it's going to give you a recommendation that you can consider maybe giving it some more resources. And what I found with this tool for most small customers, when they've deployed to OCI, after a few months and it's out there and it's had a chance to run and collect those metrics, there's usually a few $1,000s they're able to save each month on their OCI consumption. For larger customers, I've seen savings as high as $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 per month just by looking through the recommendations, and just basic recommendations like over-allocated compute, orphan storage, and load balancers that were allocated as too big for what they're doing. This is a easy button that a FinOps team, an operations team, even just some of those specific areas like the DBAs can check in on once a month, look through their resources, and see if there's any opportunities to reduce their costs down, or to identify areas where something is way overburdened and maybe you need to consider adding some more resources on it so it's not so bogged down by what it's doing.
Perfect. I think one other thing which I want to ask you about it before I know that you brought in the learning opportunity slide is there anything which you want to talk about from the collaterals perspective, or how is Oracle investing, providing our users the information so that they can take advantage of it?
Yeah, I know with today's session, it's a short 30 minutes, right? So we're just going to breeze through several services. We've got a much deeper dive scheduled on October 15th. That'll cover some of the same material, but it's going to go into some other tools and some other demos. We just didn't have time for today and this short session. But a couple of things I'd recommend people take a look at. If you've been on OCI for a while, right, and you're beyond just doing cost analysis service and something like Show OCI caught your attention, I go look at the GitHub projects associated with Show OCI. Right, this is something that one of our very smart teams, led by a really genius of a developer, created. But he also created a few other tools beyond that that are worth looking at. Show Usage is another one that is kind of a cousin to Show OCI. And with Show Usage, you can get more of that cost-focused information about your resources. There's also tools as a companion to that called Usage to ADW. And what that's going to allow you to do is take some of that costing information, especially if you get it for your whole tenancy, right? And that's a lot of data, and pull that into an autonomous data warehouse and be able to look at that from a graphical interface using something like Apex. So you can see the information and you can kind of pick it apart like you'd see with a lot of third-party commercial software. Okay. If you're new to this, right, and you're new to OCI and you're not even had a chance to get those tools, with Day One and beyond, with Customer Connect, we've got a lot of good sessions coming up that are at that 100, 200 level, talking about the infrastructure, talking about services you can use to do analytics around your consumption. Of course, the deeper dive and things around just basic cloud economics that you need to be aware of if you're in some sort of role that you're responsible for answering questions about financials. Right? We've had a lot of good announcements that came out this year. This year, we've had a bunch of costing service updates. If you're in a server role or managing a fleet of databases, Operation Insight's a good tool to get a lot of rich data about compute, storage, memory allocation, and it's mostly been focused on just operations day to day. They've added some costing information, some forecasting information for what you're using with, say, a fleet of 1,000 servers or a fleet of 10. Figure out what is my usage, what would happen if I added additional capacity on. We had the hub that I mentioned earlier, some additional cost reports that came out as part of the analysis service, and then budgets supporting a lot more information and a lot more alerts like triggering on tags. And so this summer, there was just a ton of different enhancements and features that came out. And as the year goes on, I would expect for more rich features to come out around our financial operations tools.
Thank you, Jason. That was very informative. Thank you very much.
I wanted to ask, can we use this tool for Oracle SAS or Fusion as well as Integration Cloud?
Some of these tools, yes. Let me roll back up to, let's get start with the easy tool, right? The cost analysis service. A lot of those SKUs that you're talking like the integration service, at least the OCI SKU, because that's one that actually has a SKU that a version of it that runs in SAS, a version of it that runs in OCI. If it's a version of it that runs in OCI, yes, you can use this to pull that off. It's got its own individual SKU. You can actually sort by that and pull that information out day, month, quarter. Okay. If it's in the SAS version, no, you'd be using a different set of tools for that. Okay.
Is there a way to manage all the subscriptions in a single pane of glass?
That's coming. There is a new enhancement that came out it was this month, it was just a couple days ago, where you're able to switch to different subscriptions. So if you've got, say, 2 or 3 OCI tenancies because of a consolidation, maybe you acquired another company, or because a department wanted their own tenancy, or because you've got a specific OCI tenancy just for the SaaS stuff, we are starting to build out some tools and enhancements where from one spot you can select other tenancies. So I'd expect that is something in the roadmap you're going to see more and more of, especially where you've got like a parent-child relationship where the child tenancy was created from the parent. So there is some connectivity there. You're going to see some of our tools being able to give you the option to have like a drop-down menu to select other tenancies. Good question. Very timely.
Yeah, one last one. How do I get aggregated costs or usage reports? Is it by day or by week?
Generally, so there's the cost and usage reports is something you can download as a CSV. Generally, you're going to use that when you have integration with some sort of tool. And there is some white paper set up, and I don't have it handy, where you can basically have it set up for automation to download the cost and usage reports and then fed into your third-party tool of choice. And if that's what you're looking for, I don't have it handy, but there are some ways to automate that entire process because all of these tools are backed by APIs. And so what I've shown you on the screen via the GUI, especially on the PowerPoint slides, we've got API backing behind that you can run the same, clicking around this to pull that information out and download it without having to be in the GUI. But that is definitely something that's supported, is downloading the cost and usage. If it's just ad hoc reports, then I'd recommend coming through here and configuring your reports, maybe saving them. There is an option to save these reports off. And then for ad hoc reports, downloading them with this drop-down menu here, where you can download it as a PDF or a CSV.
Got it. Thank you.
So Jason, if they have any questions after this webinar, they can obviously send an email to the alias I just put in the chat, which is personal-trainers_us@oracle.com. But is there any other way they can ask questions?
No, that's probably the best one for getting back with the team here on. The other one I'd offer out, actually, my favorite one is if you've got an Oracle account team, right? This same overview that I've given today is something I've given to all the accounts that I've covered and some of the accounts for my peers, and we'll do a much deeper dive, right? There are 3 or 4 other tools here where we can get into a lot more depth of information, such as the show usage to ADW. And these things are ones that are great for demos. And you should pick on your Oracle account team to show you how to use these, show you how to get these set up, how to automate them, how to automate, for example, that last question of show me how to automate pulling out the cost and usage reports so I can pull it into, whether it's Power BI or some other tool. Your account team will help show you how to build that stuff up and automate it, and how to use some of these other tools that we didn't have time for today. So I think that would be my number one recommendation. Pick on your account team, and then of course the email Renu that you're going to put in the chat there.
Thank you.
With that, I'm going to turn it over to Taylor, I believe.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jason. So if you like today's session and want to learn more, like Jason said earlier, we'll be covering the cost management and governance quick start in our webinar series on October 15th. That'll be in our core series, which covers a wide range of topics to get you started with OCI. Then we have our hands-on, which will walk you through live labs. Then we have our cloud native, which is a guide through our breadth of app development services and security to secure your organization's digital assets. Our next webinar will be on Monday, October 28th. Please join us for a session on next-gen healthcare powered by Oracle Cloud. We'll explore the transformative impact of AI and ML solutions on healthcare. Thanks again for joining us. We'll see you next time. Have a great Monday.